This video is all about how to paint a feather. I will show you in real time how to paint watercolour feathers. Now you can have fun with painting these with any colour that you wish. Or, if you prefer, you can use my same techniques to paint a very realistic looking feather. Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson and I'm an online art tutor for painting realistic wildlife, both animals and plants in watercolour. Oh, and don't forget to click on subscribe down below and click on that little bell icon as well, because at least that way around, when I do release a brand new video here on YouTube, you shouldn't miss it. So let's just draw a faint, slightly wobbly line, and then along that line we'll do another one by the side of it, kind of parallel to that, so it's nice and slim all the way down, and as it gets towards probably about 3/4 of the way down really, get a little bit wider towards the bottom of the feather. And that is the only drawing you need to do. I know, easy isn't it? Now feathers do vary in shape, don't they? But just try and think of just a general feather shape like that. So this kind of outline, as you can see here. So we'll just work on that idea by wetting the paper. And you need to wet the paper 2, maybe 3 times, allowing each layer to soak into the paper itself, okay? That way it will stay wetter longer and give you a little bit more working time when you start adding that colour over the top. So I'll do this both sides, trying to avoid the central of the feather, the central area. But if you do catch it, don't worry, okay? It's not a problem. We'll fix that later on. I'll probably catch it anyway. I don't worry about things like that. I really don't. I'm going to make mine more of a kind of larger, wider shape as well. So add these lines in, and I'll do the same on the other side. I'm going to go over this 2, maybe 3 times. Now that should be wet enough. Now I think I've just about avoided the central line. As I mentioned, if I haven't, I'm not too worried. So we're lifting some paint off later anyway. Okay, now let's start off with the yellow. I'll add the yellow to the top. It's going to be really bright colours, it really will be. And that's both sides of the main central shaft of the feather. Nice and bright. And this is just simply lemon yellow, that's all it is. A little bit of lemon yellow. Now you have to remember as well, the water on the paper will dilute the paint, which it always does. And I think I'm going to lift off a few little lines in that sort of direction. Think about like a V shape as you come up. Taper into a bit of a point. And the same on the other side. There we go. Okay, give that a quick rinse out. And then I'm going to go for the pink. So this is Opera Rose. Opera Rose. Oh, look at that lovely colour. So Opera Rose, we'll start adding this one in now. It's a very bright colour. Very bright indeed, as you can see. And then same on the other side. As we say up north, t'other side. Barely grazing the paper. Now this will dry a little bit lighter because again we've got the water on the paper. Allow it to mix in with some of that yellow colour. A little bit more. And then a bit further down. Doesn't have to be too neat for that because I'm going to be outlining the main central shaft area a bit later on. We'll go for the purple. Now this purple is ultramarine violet, if you need to know the colour. But purple, doesn't really matter. Whatever purple you've got. We'll add this one in. Wow. Very, very bright, lovely, vivid colour, isn't it? Again, it will dry a little bit paler, a little bit lighter. And the same on the other side. Now, whilst this is nice and wet, I'm going to quickly rinse that brush out, then I'll come back in with a size 00 brush. So nice dry size 00 brush. If you get some runs like that, just very lightly lift it. Some kitchen roll. So I've got in my hand ready to go. Not very clean as you can see, but it'll do. It'll do. And start lifting out some lines. Think about that curved V shape. So all it is as you go up the stem or the central shaft of the feather, whatever you want to call it. Start lifting out those slight kind of curved motions as you come along. Have a look in the top right hand corner for a little bit more information on that. Doesn't matter if it's not that neat because we'll be adding detail over the top of this anyway. Then when you get down to the bottom or near the bottom, start switching angles. So we went down towards probably 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock direction. Now we're switching towards 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, it's getting earlier. Then all the way down to about 7 o'clock, something like that, crisscrossing some of these lines as we go. So do the same on the other side now, using the same method. Then switch, probably around about a quarter of the way up, something like that. Overlapping some of these lines in places. And then switching again to the other side. Now, when you pull out the details and doing this way around, you get a nice tapered line, don't you? So that's why it's best to kind of go from the inside out and lift out as you do so. It's got a nice kind of tapered, lovely little line going on. Again, thinking about that gentle curve, bringing the lines through all of this paint. A little bit neater towards the central line there. A bit of colour in the top, I'm not too worried about that, that's fine. Let's add a bit more on that side as well, so it's a bit more even, you know. And the same on that side. Now, I want this to dry. Once it's nice and dry, we can start to think about adding the detail over the top. Right, that's nice and dry, and we can start to think about adding the colours over the top. Now, it's already quite colourful, isn't it? But I'll tell you what we can do. We can go for the yellow first. You'll barely be able to see this. All this will do, we could brighten up certain areas. But I'm leaving quite a few gaps in between. Again, thinking about that kind of V shape, like a curved, each one slightly curved, as you come all the way down the feather until you get to this area down here. As we work our way down, thinking about this gentle V shape, then we'll start changing the colours as we go along. But allow some of the first colour to overlap into the second colour a little bit more. Which is what I'm doing here. And you can see, just about make out, I know, you can see that this is brightening up the colour in places that little bit more. Breaking up these edges slightly as well. But again, leaving gaps in between. You can have some really good fun, so go through your colour palette that you've got and see what colours you can use to make, well, colourful feathers. Because obviously there's a lot of colours out there. I like to go for the bright, vivid colours if you can. Obviously, if you want to paint something a bit more detailed, then you can do. And I do paint a lot of feathers, I paint a lot of birds, and I'm a realistic artist, normally, as you can imagine, for the work I do. So I usually like to kind of work and fine-tune all the little tiny details all the way through the feathers. So for me, doing this is really good fun in the sense of it's kind of lets you go a little bit. You know, you don't have to be precise because it's, as I said, just for fun. It's something that you can do as a little gift on a card, on a greeting card front, anything like that, which makes a nice little gift actually for somebody's birthday card or anniversary or whatever you want to call it. Or anybody that's into their wildlife, especially birds. So that'd be really useful. I'll branch a few of these into the top of the feather as well. And then we'll do the same on the other side. So I'm going to carry on all the way down here now, switching the colours, allowing this colour, this opera rose, this pink colour, to kind of gradually work its way into the purple. And then I'll bring the purple gradually back into the opera rose. Got the idea? Okay, I'll carry on. If you're enjoying this watercolour tutorial on how to paint a feather, could you do me a favour and click on like, share, subscribe and pop a little comment down below for me as well, because all these interactions encourage YouTube to show the content to more people, and this in turn will allow my channel to grow that little bit more and to teach other budding artists like yourself. Playing with the paints is a good way of learning how to kind of get the consistency of paint right when you're working with details as well, whether you're going to work with watery, milky, creamy or thick paint, you know. And this particular one, the wash we put on there was a watery kind of coloured wash. We'll say watery, the paint itself was milky, but because we added water on the paper, actually turned out to be more of a watery mix, because the water on the paper diluted that paint, didn't it? So because of that, that's ideal. However, when you go onto the dry papers I'm doing now, the colour will still fade that little bit, but not quite as much as it would do onto damp or very wet paper. Okay, now I'm going to very lightly just go around the inside or the outside edge of the main shaft, just a little bit. Probably to about there though, because the colour obviously changes, doesn't it? We do need to darken it slightly. So a little bit more now on that side as well. Okay, probably to about there. Something like that will do. And then we're going to go for a darker colour. A little bit of black on its own, a little bit of purple on its own. So black and purple is all we're looking for. Again, to more of a probably milky consistency. An I-class milk it doesn't run down the side of the palette very well. It's not thick, and it's not really creamy. It's kind of in between the two, between watery and creamy. You know what I mean when you do it. So it's not toothpaste, okay? Then very lightly touch the one edge, or just the side edge there, look, along the stem. Get some more. When you load that brush up, what you got to do is that you get your brush, and all you need to do is load it like that, roll it as you pull away, okay, and then get some kitchen roll, as I said, preferably clean, and give it a couple of taps, something like that will do, and that'll take some of that residual paint off the tip of the brush and allow you to kind of get a finer line by barely touching that paper. Remember, barely touching that paper. If you want to now as well, you can just pull a few odd ones now, slightly darker lines coming away from the stem or the shaft. Different ways that people say it, I know there is. How do you say it? Put a comment down below for me, please. What would you call the centre part or the central part of a feather? Now I'm going to get some Opera Rose, pop that in the corner there, add into this dark colour, okay, give it a tap on some kitchen roll, and then do the same again but with a paler colour to either side, or to each side that you can see here. Now remember, it gets thinner, doesn't it, as it goes higher up on a feather, until it becomes, well, just like a little tiny line towards the very tip of that feather. So it kind of gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Okay, I'm going to darken this slightly more now. I might use some of that pink colour, why not? Just down towards the base. And then a damp, clean brush. Make sure there's no runs on the metal ferrule there. And just very lightly lighten and soften that edge on the inside of that edge though. And that'll give you like a gradual kind of curve coming around. And we can do the same all the way up. Now you have to keep washing your brush out though, because you find that you'll end up moving paint from one place over to another. Very lightly just touch the inside of that line and just soften it down just that little bit more. If it's not enough, come back in with a little bit more colour into that damp paper for half of that width. Just see the outside edge here, look, there you go, there it is. Okay, right, now the next stage is lifting off some clean tissue, ta-da, and a damp brush. So I'm going to wet the brush first of all and drag it through my kitchen roll just once. And what I can do now, I can start to gently lift off some paint to create some gaps within the feather, just like that there, look. And then once you've lifted off enough, you can get a little bit of colour and just tint in. That was a comic character, wasn't it, Tintin? Just tint in one side of it to create that little bit of a gap. And then we can do that throughout the feather itself, as much as you want to do it as well. So if you want to soften down these bit of a jagged edge there, we can do that by just lightly softening it or lifting off a bit of a gap there in places that, well, that you want to add a gap really. Let's just put another gap down here, shall we? Mind the gap. Just down there. Okay. And we can take off a little bit more paint. So this is simply a lifting off technique. If you've never done it before, it's a good technique to use. I use it very often within my wildlife paintings to kind of add detail to, I don't know, to a horse's head or a cat's whiskers, you know, within the body, so you can make them stand out really, really well. Some thinner than others. In other words, all I'm doing barely touching the paper in some places. Lightly skimming it, keep going over the same line a few times, and then whilst it's damp, lift, and you can see all the marks I've got within my kitchen roll here. There's quite a few though, isn't there? So I'm going to continue all the way around, as I say, and I'll see you back in a bit when I've done a little bit more. So you're building up on detail, taking smaller areas off, even finer areas in this as well. Thinking about the overall shape, because you find with some feathers, the darker on one side, lighter on the other, because the way that the light hits that feather. But in this case, it's just a bit of a fun feather, isn't it? And remember to play with different colours, probably no more than 5, I'd say, something like that really, if I get a little bit too busy in colour, wouldn't it? So see what colours you've got within your half pans or your tube paints and have a play. Now look in the description down below where you'll be able to sign up to my newsletter, and that way you get a free PDF document on how to paint a house sparrow in watercolour, which of course includes how to paint feathers, but this time in much more detail. Now let me know in the comments down below what colours that you prefer when painting feathers. I'd love to hear from you. Now take a look to my right where you find the next video on how to paint a peacock's feather.